heavy allegations. We're talking about Sean Diddy Combs, yeah, P. Diddy, the music mogul.
Right.
And this story is a lot to unpack, so we're going to try to take a deep dive into it all. Basically, we have a woman going by the name Jane Doe who is accusing Diddy of drugging and raping her
Yeah.
at a party.
Back in 2014.
Back in 2014, that's right. And this is, obviously this is a very serious accusation, and we need to talk about the music industry and power dynamics and just how these kind of allegations are handled. It's a big deal.
Yeah, and I think it's a story that a lot of people can relate to. It brings up a lot of issues that I think people have been thinking about for a long time.
Exactly. So let's try to transport ourselves back to that night in Las Vegas.
Okay.
It was Memorial Day weekend 2014.
Vegas, baby.
Vegas, baby.
Yep.
A high roller suite. Party's going on. Everybody's having a good time. And according to Jane Doe, she's kind of being ushered over to the open bar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when things start to get blurry. She says that she is then led to a room by one of Diddy's associates, and that's when the alleged assault happened.
Right.
So this is where the legal system comes in, because Jane Doe, she's seeking justice, but she's doing it through a civil lawsuit. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what that actually means, like what that looks like.
Yeah. So when we say civil case versus criminal case, that's actually a very important distinction. It changes the game significantly.
How so?
Well, in a criminal case, the prosecution, they need to prove that the person's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right.
And that is a very, very high bar to clear, But in a civil case like this one, the standard is what's called preponderance of the evidence.
Okay.
Meaning the judge or the jury, whoever is deciding, they just have to be convinced that it's more likely than not that the assault actually happened.
So it's like 51%.
Basically, yeah. It's a lower burden of proof than in a criminal case.
I see.
And that's something that is important to keep in mind, right? Because proving that something happened years ago, it's very difficult. And what kind of evidence is going to be compelling in a case like this? It's tricky, right? Testimonies are really important, but those can be challenged. Physical evidence would be fantastic, but in a case this old, it might be very difficult to come by.
Right.
Right. So that's a challenge.
So what kind of evidence does Jane Doe have?
So she's saying she has photos from that night that she claims support her story. And there's also this wrinkle of empty bottles of GHB.
GHB. Now that has a really bad reputation, doesn't it?
Yeah. GHB, or as it's sometimes called, the date rape drug.
Right.
Because it can cause memory loss and it can make someone physically helpless, so they can't consent. So that's really serious. And if proven, that could have a huge impact on the case.
It could.
But the question is, how do you prove that, that it was used intentionally to incapacitate someone, to take advantage of them? That adds a whole other layer of complexity,
This is very complex.
It is.
And what about Diddy himself? His career, his public image. I mean, what are the potential ramifications for him?
Yeah. It's tough to say for sure, right?
Yeah.
But allegations like these, even without a conviction, they can do a lot of damage. Public perception is a fickle thing, and we've seen plenty of careers completely crumble under similar circumstances.
So I think you think about the music industry as a whole and, the power dynamics involved. Are there systemic issues that make these situations more likely to occur?
That's the question, isn't it?
Right. What kind of safeguards should be in place?
Exactly. What are we doing to make sure that everyone in the industry, regardless of their position, feels safe and respected, that they're protected?
I mean, it kind of feels like this is a watershed moment, like some of the other big #MeToo cases we've seen.
Absolutely. It really makes us confront some tough realities.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I think it's important for us to reiterate that at this point, these are still just allegations. The legal process still needs to play out. We need to make sure we're respecting all parties involved.
I agree. It's a really sensitive situation that deserves, careful consideration.
So as we come to a close on this deep dive,
Yeah.
I think it's important to leave everyone with a thought, a question to consider. How might this case, regardless of the outcome, change the way we approach these kinds of allegations? What do we need to do to make sure that these stories are heard and addressed properly? How do we move forward from here?
Yeah, that's the big question. How do we do better?
All right, well, that's all the time we have for today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
And to everyone listening, we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See ya.